With me now is Jeanne Meserve, CTV's international security expert. Jeanne, good morning. So glad you could be with us. I want to begin by asking your thoughts on seeing those two women, one of whom went before the cameras in that remarkable news conference. What went through your mind when you saw that Hamas had released two more people? What do you think is their goal?
I think part of it is to rehabilitate their image. They have said this was a humanitarian gesture. They would like to be seen that way internationally. Of course, that's a stretch considering what happened in southern Israel just a couple of weeks ago. So that is part of it. Um, I'm not sure with these two hostages how severe their health problems were. Obviously, if they were severe, the hostages are of less value to them if they're dead. So better to get rid of them. Another thing that went through my mind is what a valuable source of intelligence these women may be for the Israelis. They obviously have been debriefed. They talked publicly about this incredible spider web of tunnels that they were led through, and also how well prepared the Hamas captors were to hold them. That there were antibiotics, that there was shampoo, there clearly is water. So Hamas, this clearly was part of their plan to take hostages and hold hostages for a considerable period of time. I'm sure the Israelis will be digging very deep with these women to try and get a clearer sense of exactly what they saw while they were in captivity.
It's such an interesting point. And to that, I wondered if perhaps we were hearing too much. Too much was being shared. And could it possibly put the other remaining hostages in jeopardy?
That did not occur to me. It's an interesting thought, however. I think the other hostages clearly are in jeopardy already. We don't know if they're all being held in the kind of comfort that these women were. One of the women mentioned that she and her husband had been separated. Perhaps the men are being treated differently than the women are. You'll note that the four hostages who have come out so far all have been women. So it's an interesting thought, but I think the fact that they are still held, that Gaza is under Israeli bombardment, all of that places their health and well-being in far greater jeopardy than anything these women might divulge.
Let's talk about the U.S. position at this point and what we're hearing from President Biden. He is not backing a ceasefire, but at the same time, he is supporting aid going into Gaza. It's a fine line. What do you make of the U.S. stance right now on this point in the
It's
conflict?
It certainly is an extraordinarily fine line that he's trying to tread here. He wants to show full U.S. support for the Israeli government, and yet he also wants to show sensitivity to the humanitarian situation that's unfolding in Gaza, which, of course, is absolutely dire. One thing the U.S. Is doing that interests me is they have dispatched to Israel a Marine general who was involved in the fighting in Iraq. Who is, we're told, talking to the Israeli military about exactly what their plans are in Gaza, how they would mount a ground assault, what that might look like how to optimize the chances of success, and providing them with cautionary words about exactly how difficult this will be. And also perhaps trying to get from them some clarification of what their ultimate objectives are. Because, of course, the debate has been not only about when do they go in, how long will they stay, but then what happens afterwards. And there's no clarity on that point, at least publicly.
Then what? Absolutely. Do you rebuild a new administration in Gaza? What happens with Gaza following an assault? I do also want to ask you about the UN Security Council meeting today in New York. Antony Blinken will be there. What do you expect to come from that meeting? Of course, we're going to see a show of support for Israel. But do you think we'll hear something on, Jeanne, possibly calls for a ceasefire?
I have absolutely no clarity on that. I will tell you up front. The UN has proved to be a very fractious body. They have taken up this matter before. You'll remember the US vetoed a proposal that had been up a week or so ago. Also, there's questions about how effective it would be no matter what the UN says. The UN has not proven itself to be an effective international voice and force when it comes to stopping conflicts in various places around the globe. So the question I would ask is, even if something is said at the United Nations, is it more theater than substance?
Jeanne Meserve, she's CTV's international security expert. Jeanne, thanks so much for your time this morning.